A man called or noticed if he is angry. How, in the 21st century, are these terrible documents still being printed? Position of the clock hand, it's already late. The main character wonders if at least he will be able to take the last train home. He is about to leave, but suddenly turns his attention to the computer screen. He looks at a beautiful picture of nature, and thinks about how quiet and peaceful village life would please him. It's a little sad, but then suddenly he remembers the train, and says that if he doesn't hurry up, he won't be able to get home today. Suddenly, the boxes of papers fall on him. He exclaims loudly in surprise and curses. The whole shelf falls on him. Watch his blood in silence. Answering why he is the only one who is working overtime that day, he knows that even if he asks for help, no one will come. He looks at the table where the computer is, saying that he will not be able to get the last train. Try calling someone. But he understands that there is no point in asking for help, because there is no one to help him. Look at the picture on the computer. Admiring the agriculture of the village, he says it looks like the end. Gradually, his vision darkens. He wakes up in an unknown place. Someone calls him a lost soul. He sees a beautiful girl in front of him. She greets him and says that he is Investa. She introduces herself as the goddess of the beginning. Arya Tadashi asks to wait. The goddess clarifies that the main character does not know what is happening now. She says that he was brought to this world of Avesta after his death on Earth. Tadashi understands and says that he is dead. Think to yourself, what a stupid death. He looks around and is amazed by the scenery. He wonders if this is heaven, but soon remembers that she talked about another world. The goddess says that she has the opportunity to be reborn and start from scratch in another world. Tadashi wonders again. The goddess confirms and says that this is an opportunity to live life for the second time. His soul is very pure, which means he should be blessed by them. She screams that the gods are coming to her. The gods appear before the main character. Arya says that they are her family, the gods, and that she has the right to choose a god to receive a blessing. He looks at them and thinks that they are all very different. Suddenly he notices the old man. He approaches his grandfather with a hat and asks for forgiveness, and then turns to him. Grandfather asks again, first, and then says that it is Cronus, the god of agriculture. The main character exclaims and asks again, looking at his grandfather. The old man turns around abruptly and says he won't say anything more. He asks the young man to leave. Grandpa says he's more than sure that the guy will say that farming is too boring, and that it's not worth it. It is worth choosing this blessing for a new life in another world. He also adds that if the guy wants to become a hero, it is better to choose the god Baal or the goddess of wisdom, mine. Grandfather says that wise men are also very popular and powerful now, and that, with his blessing, the boy can use magic. However, the young man denies, and says that he likes farming more, no matter how strange it may seem. The old man is very surprised and asks him if he is serious. He also asks if he is sure that he heard correctly. The guy says he always wanted to spend the rest of his life in a quiet village, and the blessing of the god of agriculture is the perfect combination for this. Grandpa still doesn't believe it and asks, stuttering a little, if he really wants to choose it. Then he says that if he wants to become a craftsman, the volcano god would be better for him. The guy asks Kronos what he gives. The god of agriculture is happy to have asked, and says that agriculture, how to be alive, is not only the fields to be plowed, but also involves forestry, fishing, livestock, brewing, baking and processing. The list can go on forever. The main character says that in this case she gives herself to him. He calls him Sir Kronos. Grandpa starts crying. The guy is surprised and asks if she is crying because of his words. Grandfather says that he can't stop crying because 10,000 years have passed since the creation of the world. And 2 people from Commas 24 came here, and he is the first to choose agriculture. The guy asks if it's true. The god remembers that he has not asked the boy's name. The main character is introduced as or noted as well. Grandpa says it's a great name. He is still surprised by the guy and says, hesitating, it is strange to be reborn and start farming. It is not hidden that the guy will not regret the choice later. Then he turns to the area. The goddess asks what this is. Grandpa says he won't get this chance anymore. But he has a request. At the expense of his life, he asks her to transfer all his power to or noticed if. The goddess says she understood. The grandfather turns to Tadashi and says that he will give him all his power. Suddenly there is a glow. The main character asks what appeared in his hand. They explain to him that this means that he was chosen as the savior of the world. Look at the hand where the mark appeared. This is the blessing of the god of agriculture. 7 stars. Suddenly, someone calls the old Kronos and tells him to wait. He is the god of heroes and the goddess of wisdom, Mine, who calls him to explain himself and says that he has been crazy. Giving a person 7 stars is against the rules. The grandfather asks why he took it off and asks him to look for himself. He also asks what the rules are. The god of heroes says he doesn't care, but they always gave a person a maximum of 5 stars. Mia agrees and says that, even being agriculture, you are not allowed to give someone 7 stars. He also says that the laws of this world cannot be violated, and that Mrs. Arya will not do it cheap. The main character turns to Arya and asks if this is true. The old man gets angry and tells Mia to shut up and listen to him. Grandfather says that agriculture is the basis of human life. Arya asks them to listen to her and says that there are reasons for everything. She turns to the goddess of wisdom and clarifies that the world is on the verge of destruction. She says that in this case the dress is waiting for the end. Mia is confused and doesn't know what to say about it. Arya continues, saying that the world there is not very developed, and that most of its inhabitants are still fighting for the territory, although hunger and poverty reign in many places. She asks me how many people he blessed because of 2024. She replies that it's 533, at least that's what she thinks. Then he turns to the chest and clarifies that he blessed at least 800 people. She asks if she is right. The god of heroes responds positively. Arya says that with rare exceptions, there were at least 4 people who turned into dragons and received the blessing of the monster god Oda. 24 demon lords under the patronage of Diabel, the demon god, and 6 blacksmiths, who were blessed by Vulcan. However, Arya says that he is the first to choose the god of agriculture. His abilities are not combat, which means that the 7 stars will not make him a battle god. She says there is more food in this world. Better for him. Mia says that she doesn't care how many times the lady explains this to her, but that she still doesn't accept. She looks at the guy with disgust and clarifies that he is noticed like that. The main character responds positively and wonders what comes next. The girl asks why she shouldn't choose one of them now. She says she has an amazing soul and deserves more than agriculture. The god of agriculture gets angry, and the girl is interested in knowing what the problem is. Kronos heads to Mia and Oval, but Paradise abruptly that before he forgets, as the main character needs tools. He needs to go to the Vulcan. Grandpa says he gave Tadashi the blessing, which means he can guarantee it. Mia gets angry and asks what she thinks she's doing. The god of agriculture says that he is the hope of this world. He says that the monsters in this world are too strong, and even with his blessing, Tadashi will be weak in battle. He says that a blessing is very small. Mia says she can't. She claims that no one has received the blessings of various gods. The old man says that she is very spoiled, and that if she wants to survive on Vesta, she has to fight. He turns to the god of heroes and asks if he agrees. Because everything is to save the world, he apologizes and responds negatively. The god of agriculture falls to his knees in front of him. The man is very surprised and says that the gods should not kneel in front of each other. The old man asks and says he's very weak, and that's all he can give Tad like that. Privately, Ball believes that Cronus went too far. The god of heroes hesitantly agrees and tells Kronos to raise his head. He says he will give a hero's blessing to such and such. Exactly 1 star. He asks the protagonist to shake his hand, and the glow appears again, then turns to Vulcan, and says that now it's his turn. Vulcan says he agrees with Kronos, but you can't even give him a star. He asks his problem, and then seems questioning to Tadashi. He thinks he is very weak, and responds positively. He begins to explain that when the gods give a blessing, they strengthen their faith at the expense of the person they have chosen, and they should receive something in return. The protagonist apologizes and says he has no money. Vulcan is surprised and in a good mood as he heads to Cronus. He says that the guy is funny, that Vulcan explains that the fee is not in cash and that it can be paid later. For example, it can be a common shrine or an altar that the guy understands and believes should be a place of worship. The god of gods says that he would prefer high-quality alcohol and delicious food, and then add that, after all, he was the first to choose agriculture. The protagonist is happy for the Vulcan, and turns to the god of heroes, asking what he wants. He replies that he would like not to give his blessing. Tadashi says you can get it back if you want. He says he is well-mannered and should forget about it. Thinking it was a simple gift, in the end, he adds that the most important thing is that he does not ride his heart. The goddess of the beginning turns to the protagonist and asks if he is ready. He responds positively, and thank you. Arya tells him to keep the blessing given by the gods of the mortal world. The girl smiles and wishes him a happy life. The protagonist is surprised. She breaks his fingers, and the protagonist is on a cloud. He shouts loudly. The trees are visible. A second later, he falls to the ground. The protagonist is very surprised and screams asking where he is. He is in the middle of a desert. This is for this, the Limbo subcontinent. Kronos lands from above, congratulates him. The protagonist turns to him, questioning. The old man says he put it to hand quickly. The protagonist says he doesn't even understand where he is. The old man looks at the landscape, lists everything he sees. Mountains, rivers, forests, plains. And then he says that it doesn't matter where he is, because there's everything for life. Tadashi understands that the air there is clean, and thinks to himself that he wanted to grow in a quiet city, and never imagined that he would end up in a desert land. He says he is happy because he can do what he always wanted, but he wonders why he needs to start from scratch. The old man explains that this is the only place untouched by people. He says that, to put it another way, the whole country charges a good fee for this kind of activity. The protagonist is very surprised because he never thought there would be taxes in another world. The old man asks if he still wants to go to any country, as he would have to give a large percentage to the nobility, and suffer humiliations from them. The guy asks to continue with the briefing. The protagonist thinks to himself that, for the first time, he sees that in the fantasy world. The gods reveal all the maps of their worlds. Farmers in this world are very poor, and, due to taxes, they can barely live. Maybe someone thought that this was a test of the gods. But I know it's not that. The old man says that every country in the world is stuck in war and corruption, and that is his only salvation. He also says he wouldn't want the guy to go through all the worst things in this world. The protagonist says that the old man is very kind and sincerely thank you. He asks God if these lands are really uninhabited. He says that this subcontinent is called Limbo and is considered rejected by the blessing of the gods. It is easy to break a tool on local stones, since the stones and trees that grow there are harder than iron. The river is full of deadly poison instead of water. The old man claims that no one will live there. The protagonist is outraged and asks how he will live there. In this case, the angry old man asks you to listen to the rest. He says that these lands were rejected by the gods, that's why everything is so bad. But it is blessed by the god of agriculture, and has a 7-star power. The protagonist asks how he can use this power. The old man says he needs to hand dive in the river first. The guy is outraged and asks again. He stretches his hand towards the water, thinking to himself that this is the poisonous river. Suddenly a light appears, and the water becomes drinkable. The old man says he can drink the water now. The protagonist is surprised, but agrees. The old man says that his blessing can purify any water. The guy is happy and grateful, but the god says that it is too early to thank, and that when his body was transferred to this world, he was 20 years old again. He also says that now the guy is no longer afraid of injuries or diseases. The protagonist says that he now understands why he feels so light from the moment he appeared there. The god of agriculture says he has a parting gift for him. The old man looks slightly at the young man. Tadashi wonders what it is. Grandfather says that it is Mia's magic scholarship, an ideal item for agriculture, because inside there's unlimited storage space for things that are also out of time. This means that even the products will not be maintained. The protagonist asks if he can take the bag, and the old man says that if he doesn't say that he took the treasure without permission, he can. The guy says he can't do that. The god tells him not to worry, he will apologize to mine later. And he adds that it is his fault, because he did not give him a blessing, that he pays with artifacts. The guy says that in this case he will do everything to forgive the old man, and asks him what kind of offer he wants. The old man tells her not to worry about it, and that when she gets angry, it's better not to touch her. The god calls him to continue the conversation. He clarifies that the protagonist understood that purified water can be drunk. The old man says they can go on, and now they need food. He says that the guy can even store the water in his bag, and encourages him to catch some. God praises when he collects the water in his bag, and says that until he finds clay and making utensils, he will have to live like this. The protagonist pours the water out of the bag, exclaiming how he will use temporary utensils. Suddenly, the protagonist perceives something and a fish inside the bag. He is extremely surprised and screams, questioning what it was now, touching a little and wanting to clarify if it was a fish. The old man says that it is great, and also congratulates him on the first catch, saying that he already has food. Grandpa encourages him to walk in the forest, and try to find something useful in it. The trees have no leaves. The protagonist takes a branch. He is surprised with himself, thinking that these trees are magical, and really made of iron. The old man asks if he found anything. He responds positively. He says he is surprised because the blessing even allows him to understand the local plants. The old man says that this is natural. Why is your level of analysis normal? He says the only thing he doesn't understand was what Alice's weed is for. The god of agriculture says that he is lucky and explains that this herb is high class and was named in honor to the goddess of healing, Alicia. However, she should not be here, so he does not know how the guy found her. The old man assumes that she sees them and helps them. The guy says he will have to thank you, and will plant the grass right away when he has free time. Grandfather praises him for kindness, and asks what he will plant right there, saying that they need to cultivate the land first. The boy is doing something behind his back. The old man turns to him, and sees that he made a working tool. He praises the child, telling him how smart he was to think about it. The guy says it was almost the way he wanted, and he thought about making a shovel. But he ended up becoming a hoe. The old man comforts him, and says it's still a great start for those starting from scratch. The old man says that he was given the target, and asks the hero to start working on the heart. Tadashi believes that this is his first use of the instrument in this world, and begins to tell himself. The hoe hits the floor with a crash, and a large area of the earth begins to open up. The god of agriculture is very surprised, and exclaims, with a doubt, not knowing what to do. The old man screams again, and the guy asks what happened, not understanding. The old man didn't know what to think, but he says I should ask the guy what he just did. Tadashi says the old man told him to put his whole heart and soul into this case, and he followed the advice. The god growls and asks if there is something wrong. The old man takes a handful of land, and thinks about the guy who not only cultivated the land, but also made it more fertile. The old man says he honestly doesn't know, since no one has received the blessing of the god of agriculture before. And he himself does not believe that his powers are capable of such a thing in humans. It is assumed that the god influenced the protagonist, and adds that human desires can work miracles. Speaking of human desires, an image from the past appears before the protagonist, the same protective computer screen, where nature was portrayed. The protagonist says that he always wanted to do something like this. The old man says he knew it was a good face. The god then asks to try to water the earth. The protagonist begins to water the soil, and realizes that he gains a natural color. The old man says to plant something now, like Alice's weed. He remembers that he has it. The protagonist plants the seeds, and they begin to grow immediately. He exclaimed, surprised, saying that they were growing incredibly fast, and asks how it is possible. The old Brunito, and says he feels his powers coming out. This means that Tadashi's blessing will allow any plant to grow in 3 days. The protagonist thanks the explanation, and says that now everything is a little clearer for him. The old man is surprised that the guy was not surprised at all, and tells him to take the bones of the animals they found on the way, and grind them to powder to use as fertilizer. The guy throws the dust on the plants, and they start to grow even faster. The protagonist exclaimed enthusiastically, and the old man says that even fertilizers work better this way, and that at this rate, he will be able to grow a tree in 2 days. The old man suggests trying to plant something else. The boy is happy and agrees. The god says that night is coming and they need to cut wood for the fire. The protagonist says that he does not want to cut down a tree that is about to grow soon. He lifts the tree in his hands, as if apologizing to her. The guy starts cutting down the tree, and asks God if it wouldn't be better to dry off first before making the fire. The god replies that he will explain everything now. Freshly cut trees contain a lot of moisture, and cannot be used for fire. But anyway, they should be dried for 3 days with the skill of the guy. The protagonist says that 3 days are not so bad. The old man tells him not to worry, because he has a better option, and encourages him to catch and survive with the tree. The protagonist asks again, and the old man responds positively, comparing it to a cloth. Tadashi squeezes the wood like a cloth, and is extremely surprised by it. The god says he understood now what might have surprised him. The protagonist is surprised, thinking that this is also a blessing from the god, because it seems more with magic. Still wondering how a tree can be squeezed in this way, the old man turns to him, and tells him to stop measuring things for the laws of his world. After all, this is a world of gods, and people blessed by them. He says that blessings are not magic, but abilities of God himself. And that the guy got a blessing too, so he can't forget that. The young man looks at his hand, and thinks that the 7-star blessing of the god of agriculture is really amazing. The old man offers a fire. The guy apologizes and asks how the fire can do it. The god calms him down, and tells him to take dry grass and spread it. The protagonist does everything he said, and asks if he is right. The old man responds positively, and says that now he should take 2 stones, and beat each other, trying to make a spark. The protagonist does everything as God said. He can make a spark, and then a flame. The god tells him to transfer this flame to the tree. What has he done? Creating a fire. Tadashi asks the god if he finds the bonfire beautiful. The god of agriculture replies that after all the work they did, he liked to make the fire with his own hands, and find the fun. The protagonist says that this is a campfire, something he always dreamed of. The god of agriculture says that he is right, because sometimes it is useful to sit and talk with someone around the fire. Then they looked at the fire, and talked all night, looking at the stars, and listening to the sounds of nature. The protagonist felt nostalgia, because in his past life, he could only dream of such a thing, and his ancestors lived that way. Morning came, Tadashi was thinking, and the god of agriculture asked what had really happened. He replied that he was just thinking about his future, and that he thought he needed to build a house. He also said that he needed something to boil water, and he usually needed a lot of things. The god asked that I was avoiding him. Why the day before I found Kla? The protagonist remembered her, and said that he had completely forgotten. Mix the clay with sand to make it more resistant. He is good at this, and says that considering him was very bad at this, until he does well. The protagonist assumes that the blessing of the goddess has influenced. The old man asks what he is doing, looking at the beautiful rope in the young man's hand. The guy replies that this is Diane's pottery, and clarifies that his ancestors made it. The god of agriculture says that this sounds interesting, and that the things in your world are simply beautiful. The protagonist says to just fry them on the fire. He notices that they are starting to turn black. God laughs, and says that everything is exactly as he said. The young man asks what he wants to say about it, with a voice full of doubt. The old man explains that if you do everything too fast, the pieces break, but with the blessing of the god of Ferraria, everything works. The protagonist says that in this case, he will continue to polish the ice, which will improve its appearance, and give protection from moisture. They're still making the pieces. The protagonist realizes that he did not feel so much happiness with work for a long time, because he was usually sitting doing routine morning tasks last night. The guy says he's hungry and needs to cook something. The god remembers that he took a fish while collecting water. Tadashi asks to wait, and asks if the fish is edible. The god replies that he is a demonic salmon, and it's edible, but hard to catch, and they still say it's poisonous if it's undercooked. The guy asks again, surprised, and the god of agriculture calms him down, saying that everything is fine, because when he touched him, he immediately purified him from the poison. The main character asks if this is true. God says if you don't like something, you can let the PC go and do martial arts. The guy says he refuses, and he just wants to be an ordinary farmer, nothing more. The old man says he is having fun, and encourages him to remember that some creatures remain hostile, even after being purified, and that there are some like this in the local forest. God tells him not to worry. Why are you staying with him that night? Then he advises to find a shelter or build a house. The guy suddenly notices something, stuttering, and asks what it was. The old man replies that it's just some kind of demonic bird, and tells him not to worry about it. The guy says he'll have to make a gun. The god asks why, since he already has one. He explains that demonic ore and wood will be stronger than steel, which means that any tool made with it will be better than a sword. He also resembles the main character of Don't Forget that he is a hero and has a blessing. Stalin says that he is stronger than any man in this world. The guy replies, uncertain, still thinking it's better to prepare. The old man supports and asks if he remembers his herb, and then says that it can be used to make a medicine. The god of agriculture says that it is better to prepare for everything in advance. After all, if you follow this principle, in addition to saving yourself in the future, you can save more than a dozen lives. The guy turns to him and thinks to himself about what he is talking about. However, the god keeps talking so as not to worry about it. He suggests continuing to cook. First, said the salmon, then threw it into the boiling water and added some mushrooms. The guy thinks to himself that the smell is very edible, tastes, and realizes that it is very tasty. But there is a shortage of a mother or at least ordinary salt. The god of agriculture. Why don't you add some of the Lishan herb? Tadashi asks if it is possible and realizes that it gets even better. The old man says that, in general, it is an ingredient for the elixir of life, but since the seasoning also serves, the soup is being prepared. The old man says that although he is a god, he can accept food as an offering. The main character wonders if this is true, and asks what he would like initially as an offer. The god says that, in fact, he would like a stone statue, but he has to be content with what he has. The food is ready. The old man wishes the boy a good appetite, and asks what he thought about the food. The god replies that it is very tasty, and says that he had not eaten such a good dish for a long time. For if you are happy that you liked it, the god of agriculture says that he would even invite that green-headed guy to demonstrate something like that, and that although he is bold to ask for something like this, he would like him to have a statue. The hero wonders if he is talking about a volcano. Grandfather responds positively, and says that in the end, he can create the best tools in this world. The god of the forge appears out of nowhere. Vulcan says he doesn't have to be convinced for long. Kronos gives him a bowl of soup, and asks him to try it. Vulcan notices that the fish soup, taste yourself, and asks if I was thinking right, referring to him as the Lord. Vulcan. He replies that he is very good. Cronus turns to Vulcan, and says that once he has eaten, he needs to work. Vulcan asks what he is talking about, and says he will stretch the pleasure. The god of agriculture agrees, and tells him to eat, but also to listen to what he has to say. He throws something into the hand of Ford's god, and asks him if he knows what it is. Vulcan says it's demonic mineral. Cronus asks him if he can sue him, and he says that it is impossible for him, but for the god Fori. With his divine power, anything is possible. Vulcan wonders why he has divine power here. The old man is very surprised, exclaiming in a questioning manner, saying that he has never heard of any mortal to do anything about it. He demands to know what the secret is. The god of the forge says that all this happens because mortals don't think big. He turns to the main character, and says that he will need several tools, such as a furnace, a dunqua, a hammer, and a couple of tenants to hold the hot metal. Tadashi asks her to speak more slowly. The god says that to begin with, they will start with something simple, which is an oven. He also says that of course he would love to see some fusion molds, and places for the next material, but for now it's good. The main character finishes the construction of the oven and says that it is ready. The volcano says to light the fire, and now call the air, and wood that will be added until the temperature reaches the peak, the god of forging it, and says that now all that is left is to put the wood there. Tadashi says that demonic trees do not burn. The god asks if he is sure. Why can you put in enough effort? Can they be turned on? But not everyone wants to do that, so one gets the idea that wood does not burn. Tadashi says he's not on fire anyway. The god of the forge says that he knows and asks him to wait a while and watch carefully. Gradually, the flames take over the branches. Vulcan asks the main character if he sees this and explains that the color of the flame has changed from red to blue. Tadashi says that then he needs a higher temperature to illuminate, and then assumes that it is also necessary for the demon mineral. The god of forging praise him, and says that he understood everything at that moment. They also add that Mia does not understand, and constantly try to take the items from her material. Vulcan says that since he knows what to do, it's time to act. He says he will stay there and warn you if necessary. The main character thanks. Tadashi starts to work. Process the stone and the mineral turns blue. He thinks to himself and assumes that he is doing everything right. The god of the forge calls to him, and the main character shudders and responds, uncertain and scared. However, the god of forging it only praises it, saying that, since the ore has been blue, it means that it can now be worked. He also says he's never had a better student in his life, and appreciates the compliment. The main character wonders what to do, but decides to ask the Vulcan better. He says that since he does not know what to do, it is better to start by making a dish first. The god of the forge says that then he can try to make a hammer or something about it. He thinks to himself that even if nothing is going well, he will know in which direction to go. Vulcan says that everything is fine, and that when he finishes, he should put in the water. He also says that in the end, you should get a blue mineral, which is very strong, and makes excellent tools. Praise the main character, saying that it was not a bad start. The main character has the tool ready in his hand, and says that the hammer is ready, and that he has achieved. He also says that it is more or less, but he has to do his function, and he will improve with time. The 40 god says that everything worked, that with more practice, it will get even better. The main character says that he will work harder, and will ask her to teach. Volcano says it's good, and suggests trying to mine more next time, and make a better furnace. He also asks if the guy can work with dirt and materials. The guy shows the clay pans, and in response, he is surprised that the god has not noticed these utensils. Tadashi says that he made them fry in the fire at a high temperature, making it clear that they are ceramics. The god says he thinks he should start improving the quality of the pottery. He asks why not create a burning chamber. The guy says if it helps, he'll be happy. The god says he has nowhere to go, so Vulcan and they start working together. His speed would be envied by any mortal. With joint efforts, they did what they wanted. The main character falls asleep. The man next door says he finally slept. He also says that it is a pity, because even those who have a blessing still need to sleep. However, the man does not mind, and tells him to sleep, since he is working for 2 days in a row. The god of agriculture says that they did a good job in developing Tadashi. In response, Vulcan agrees, saying that from the god of agriculture says that a seed that has been given to fertile and carefully cared for soil will bloom and bear great fruits in the future. In response, another man asks him if he thinks the young man will flourish. He replies that he can't say for sure. He says that during the days they spent together, he can only say that he is not the kind of person who would risk his life. Vulcan says he's prepared well anyway, and that maybe he won't save the world, but he has a chance to do a little better. However, the god of agriculture thinks that where the guy has arrived, it's just a deserted prison of the world. God thinks that while Tadashi is there, he can change everything, not only for all the residents, but also for them, the gods. He says that, anyway, the guy should at least try, and they will just watch what happens. The god of metallurgy thinks a little, but he says that he is right. Cronus says that, of course, the two gods saw their backs, and they see a young man awake. One exclaims that Tadashi woke up and addresses him. The god says that his training has come to an end, and that at this moment he is left alone. Maybe so, thank you. Vulcan, who is nearby, says he has not had such students for a long time. Asks the main character to contact us if there are problems. However, the man warns that he will not only work like this, and tells him to prepare for a good offer. Starting with this, they begin to laugh. Tadashi says he is fine, and he can count on him. The Minister of Agriculture tells him to remember that first he needs to equip himself and start living, and then worry about the offers. The guy says it's natural, but thanks to the comment anyway nearby, a volcano tells Kronos to walk faster. The old man says he'll miss the guy, but these are the rules. He asks him to take care of himself. The guy agrees, and thanks again for the help. The gods are flying. Kronos shouts that they will meet again. The main character looks at them and says that they will surely see each other. He looks at the rising sun, and says that now is the time to reap his first harvest, thus began his new life in this world. After the third harvest, the field was greatly transformed. The cypresses and chestnut trees that he planted began to appear a forest. He built a small house for himself, a grain warehouse, and a small cellar, as he always dreamed of. That's all I needed. The main character says that he has been feeling lonely lately. However, he believes that this can be attributed to the disadvantages of life at the end of the world. He began to dream about a pet. The guy wondered where he could get one in the middle of a jungle all of a sudden. The main character notices some screams. He wonders what kind of screams they are. Think to yourself that you don't want to get into it, but at least it's worth taking a look at. Because if something bad happens, he can run. He starts walking towards the screams. The main character is very surprised when, suddenly, he sees a puppy in front of him, running away from a monster. He thinks to himself that if he does nothing, it will be bad. He wonders what to do. Think about whether you should try to save or run. Suddenly, he remembers the words of the god of agriculture, that the guy is now very strong. The main character understands what to do, determines himself, and takes a backpack tool. He thinks to himself that he was blessed by the god of agriculture. The main character tells the monster to get away from him, and take an iron from the floor. He wonders if he got it. The monster looks at him, and continues hunting the puppy. The guy says that the monster is very insistent. He has a mature plan, and thinks about himself that, as he will not go to direct confrontation. If it flies, you can easily shoot it down. He throws the dirt at the monster with an anxious, while yelling at him to leave. The monster is surprised and outraged. The main character asks if he wants more, and tells him to fly. The monster screams at him furiously. The main character hits the monster with the earth again, shouting that he has a lot of land, and that he shouldn't be ashamed. He screams that the monster should not try to get in there, because he will bury him right there. The guy tells the flying bird that he does not return, calling the overloaded chicken. The little animal trembling in Tadashi's arms. He asks how the puppy is feeling. Seeing your terrible wounds, the main character observes the terrible wounds of the animal. He asks the puppy to wait for a while, and begins to take everything out of the backpack, takes any plants, and makes a bandage over the wounds of the animal with it. I suppose this should help. Tadashi strokes the animal's head. The main character asks where he came from and where his parents are. He thinks to himself that the puppy is definitely not from that region, and assumes that he has been lost or chased by that monster. The main character notices that the puppy begins to reach for a bone. He asks if he wants a bone. The animal begins to bite the bone willingly. The guy wonders what he is doing, exclaiming that if the puppy eats the bones like this, he will break all his teeth. The main character of the food for him says to eat, smile at himself, find the animal very cute. Although he does not know who it is, the puppy looks a lot like a dog. Tadashi says he can't stay there and asks if she wants to go with him. The animal makes happy sounds. The main character takes it and says it's okay, because now they will live together. He remembers that the puppy needs a name. The guy looks at him carefully, and an idea comes to his head. He says that, while the animal makes strange sounds, it will be called Kururu. The boy is happy that he is no longer alone. The main character lies in bed, thinking that the forest is growing, and the fields are expanding. He already has several different types of crops that are good for food, but he is worried because the season is over, and he did not have time to do much. He looks out the window, and thinks he can try to find out what's there. He leaves and starts to get ready, looking at the things you gathered. He says he doesn't know what's there, but he needs to be prepared for anything. He asks Kururu, who should be an adult by now. What does he think about this? The guy realizes how he grew up quickly. Tadashi thinks that he does not know if this rapid growth is normal for him, but anyway. He is a kind of subspecies of the dogs of this world. He tells Kururu that they will take a little trip. The animal growls, questioning him. Tadashi points to the horizon, and says that they are going to the sea to catch the salt. He doesn't know how many days it will take, but anyway, he has nothing else to do there that season. The guy asks the animal if he sees where he is pointing, and the puppy growled excitedly, as if asking the main character to accompany him. Tadashi asks again. But he denies it. After all, he can walk alone. The animal still requires the main character to stand up on his back. He is very surprised and exclaims in surprise. The animal begins its journey. They travel great distances quickly. The guy tells Kururu that he is awesome, because his speed is the same as that of a car. The animal, in turn, roars happily. They quickly reach the sea. A beautiful seascape appears before them. The guy says that it would take many days to get there, praise Kururu, and thank him for bringing him. The main character thinks to himself that the sea in this world is very similar to theirs and is surprised by it. He doesn't realize that the water is very dark. He assumes that he will be able to purify it. The guy touches the water and she clears up. Admire, exclaiming. The main character demonstrates water and believes that it is salty, increasingly similar to the sea of his world. He assumes that their worlds are similar, generally speaking. Anyway, he will try to make salt. He also thinks that this plan will be accepted for now, because by serving the seawater and letting it evaporate, eventually the salt will be at the bottom. The main character is cooking salt water and thinking about the possibility of putting salt production. Suddenly, an animal comes up to him. The guy asks what it is. Addressing the main character, who pays attention to seafood and excludes him. The animal calls him to follow him. The main character asks if it's worth following him. Kururulo takes to the lake, and the guy exclaims loudly, saying that it's beautiful, that it's a huge lake. Moreover, pleased, the Kururu brings him in the mouth of a lobster. The main characters are surprised, because they did not imagine that there were locusts in this world. The character of the main character of the lobsters, because he still thinks that he is in another world, but soon dismisses all doubts, and says that he does not care if he has lobsters. A appetizing seafood table is assembled. Tadashi breaks a piece and asks Kururu to taste it. He thinks to himself that it is very tasty and it is also very salty, which is not a surprise, because they live in salt water. He thinks again, saying that it is simply delicious. Kururu is disappointed when the meal is over. The main character says he will cook it more, and he doesn't have to worry. A boat can be seen behind Tadashi. The main character thinks to himself that Kururu started drinking a lot. He assumes that it is due to salty food, and thinks that he needs to give it water. The guy turns around and notices the Kururu on the other side. He wonders if he is he. So, who is drinking the water? The main character turns around and sees a girl. Surprised, they shout loudly, asking a question. The girl with the cat ears says the water is over. The guy is still shocked and can't even ask a question. She wonders if he is a girl and mentally gives the answer that she also has ears. I had only seen this in various types of fantasy. He wonders where he is and if there may be problems in the world with the lack of water. The girl asks for water and food while calling her a gentleman. The boy asks her to wait. Mentally shocked that she addressed him in this way, a girl with tears in her eyes hugs a suddenly frozen guy. Other girls run towards him. One of them addresses him like a human being and yells at him to get his hands off Aaron. The main character wonders what is happening here. First, a girl with cat ears, then an elf. He assumes that they were on that boat, but that he was so in love with seafood that he didn't even notice them. The boy snuggles up and asks why the girl is bigger, as the elves seem to live in the forest. He wonders what's going on. The second girl asks if he heard her. He shouts again to get away from Aaron. The main character asks the girl to leave him alone, arguing that neither he nor they like it. From behind the elf girl, other girls start asking her to let her go, saying that this is a man, and that it is unthinkable that Aaron was caught by a man. Girl with cat ears goes to the guy like a gentleman again, and asks if he can order food. Tadashi says that he will give him food, but on the condition that he stops calling him master. The girl tells the elf, named Iseline, that he is a good person. And Solini asks him to stay away from him, asking if she doesn't see that he is also a man. The elf says that humans are very treacherous, and that he could have poisoned this food. Tadashi denies, and says that all the seafood has been caught recently. And he also asks why he would poison the food that he will then eat. He also asks who they are. The elf is surprised by his words, and asks if this is the border of human territory. The main character asks surprised, not understanding which border he is talking about. She asks where they sailed, and he replies that the gods said it was the end of the world. The girl asks again, surprised, about the end of the world. And he is surprised to have gone so far, and soon realizes that the water at the edge of the world must be black and poisonous. The guy replies that he cleaned the water. Otherwise, how could the salt and seafood turn out? The elf asks again and tells him not to lie. Iseline says she doesn't believe him. The guy says they have the right not to believe it, but he's telling the truth. The cat-eared girl asks if others want to eat, and says she has clean water. The girl with the elf ears asks if she understands what she is saying. Eren asks what's wrong, and says he doesn't have food or water on the boat anymore. She says that if she had not found this man, he would have died. Iselin says with uncertainty that she is right. The main character says that if they need him so much, he is willing to share his dispositions with them, that they do not care. Maybe you'll get more later. The girl with the elf ears responds negatively, saying that after what humans did, you can't trust them. She turns her attention to Kuru and asks him what kind of magical beast he is and why he is so big. The guy asks again, asking if he's talking about Kururu. He says that he is an ordinary dog and does not understand what she is saying. He thinks to himself that at least now he found out who Kururu is. But he keeps saying he's just a puppy, at most a wolf. The girl exclaimed that dogs and wolves can't be that big. She screams that her teeth can easily tear the scale of a dragon. She says she doesn't know who she thinks he is, but he is certainly the legendary Fëanor. A terrible monster appears before his eyes. The girl is very scared and faints. The girls back support her and call Mrs. Irene, asking her to return to consciousness. Tadashi is lost. It floats in front of you. The girl opens her eyes slowly, with a murmur. The main character before her asks her if she is awake. She screams in panic, calling the humans and pushing him away. He asks her if she can stop treating him like this, since the others have accepted his help. He says they were told what happened to them, that they were fishing and were dragged away. He doesn't know what they are going to do now, but he says that, first, they need to gain strength and rest. He gives her a glass and tells her to drink. She asks what this one gives. Yes, she answers that it is Arbali's water, that it will get better. The girl almost faints again and asks about the grass again. She asks where she found such a rare plant. The main character asks what she's like and asks if she doesn't understand that she's dehydrated and besides, she hasn't eaten for a long time. He received the blessing of 3 stars from the goddess of healing. Of course, she understood that he was not lying and that this weed was Alice. She thinks to herself that it is very difficult to find or buy. She assumes that he is really a good person. The main character helps her to drink, but soon the elf gets up and says he can keep drinking. The guy says he's good and suggests I try to get up. She suddenly feels the grass under her and asks about it while they were on the beach. The main character says that he got up and thought that bedtime would be uncomfortable. The girl asks, once again in disbelief, about the cultivation of grass. She is still amazed by this man, thinking he was lying about the sea. Besides, Fenrir is at your service. The elves wonder who he is now. Tadashi strokes the animal and praises him, saying that he is a good boy. The girl looks at the main character's hand and notices a 9-star blessing. She thinks that, since he has the greatest blessing, it is better not to go against him. She apologizes for her previous words and actions and introduces herself as the head of the Sea Elves and representative of the Florida archipelago, also featuring as Iselina, Ariadne's daughter. The guy responds positively, saying that he knows and has heard that she is the queen of the entire archipelago. The girl asks again and answers negatively, saying that it was a long time ago and now she is just the head of the Sea Elves. He apologizes and remembers that he hasn't introduced himself yet. Is it called or noticed that way? The girl exclaims, confused, that he really is the king and asks again, curious, if he said that he is the king. The main character responds negatively, confused. He says he heard the wrong last name. He says it's just a surname and that every yes is his first name. She asks again, still confused, what is her name? And she keeps wondering if he spoke right. The girl says that, anyway, if a person has a surname, it means that his family is well known. She assumes that the protagonist is a knight, hero or sage. He denies and says that he is an ordinary farmer. She asks again. Surprise. Then Eren realizes that the girl woke up. She says that the guy is good and even has the blessing of the 7 stars of the god of agriculture and can make everything grow quickly. She says she has a wind in her head as always. Then he asks her if she really believes that someone will just share food. Eren says that if they had not accepted help, they would have died. She gives the seafood to the girl with the elf ears and tells her to prove it. Iselin agrees with that way of her. They say he will look The protagonist does not know what to do, and asks what kind of behavior this is now. When the girl approves, the guy asks her if she is sure that there is no poison there. The girl, with the face of few friends, says that if she was going to check the poison, she would force him to prove it. He also says that he would like to refuse, but now he needs to gain strength now. The protagonist keeps thinking to what she meant by that she would have to prove. He imagines that he must have something like this in this world. The girl with the elf ears frowns from her forehead, but ends up eating. The protagonist, seeing this, smiles. In the end, she thanks him for the meal and turns to him. The boy looks at her a little without understanding. The girl kneels down. The protagonist is surprised by this. The other girl, with cat ears, is also surprised. And Celine asks the protagonist to let her become his servant. The guy screams, wondering what's going on. He repeats his words about her wanting to be his slave, and wonders what it all means. He feels the eyes of the other girls behind him. You're confused by that. She turns around, and tells them not to think anything about it, saying that she would never be a Sierra girl in her life. The elf says sadly that someone has to sacrifice for his help. She also says it could be her. Irene denies everything and says that she is their leader. That this is wrong. She offers herself as the protagonist maid. And Cell screams, very loudly, saying that the girl is the heroine of the Men of the Beast, and his last hope. The protagonist on his side asks why they want to thank him in such a way. The girls are a little perplexed, and say that he is a man, and that they are indebted to him. The elf also says that they are all bad, and they want to catch them from the servants. The boy, perplexed, asks what she thinks of him. And Celine keeps wondering if she doesn't want a beautiful maid. His imagination throws a strange scene in his head. The guy gets a little uncomfortable and says that he can't even imagine such a thing in his life. He wonders what they are thinking. He says, confused, that he has always lived alone, and does not need servants, but mentions that Kururu does not count. The elf, not believing, asks if he is serious. The other girl asks why he helped them. So, the guy can't understand what the problem is, because he only helped those who needed it. He asks if people here don't do that. The girls shake their heads in disbelief. The protagonist is very surprised and can't ask anything right. He thinks to himself that he has something wrong with the people here. He concludes that he is in the Floor Archipelago, where elves and sea beasts live. The elf says that he was captured by the army of Dewey, the people of the East Sea. The guy asks if they obey him. She says that before Dewey captured them, the demons attacked all the time from the North Sea. Many of his companions were eaten. The guy thinks to himself that this is absurd. She goes on to say that the seafarers and the beast have always been weak nations, and have tightened borders during conflicts. But now the archipelago is divided between demons and humans. Irene goes on to say that only the girls are left of the survivors. She explains that all the men disappeared in the war or were eaten by demons. And Solini says that the demons only see them as food, and that the Duke is better, but their demands are too high. Irene adds that they said they would make her into servants, and she did not fill her 7 treasures with gold in her mouth. She says she doesn't want to be his servant. The protagonist remembers a conversation with God, and thinks that these are the demands that Cronus had told him. The girls continue the story, and say that in order not to become servants, they decided to escape, and set sail in search of provisions. The protagonist clenches his fist in anger. And they think to themselves that the situation in this world is terrible, and that the people here are too cruel. He turns to Iseline and says he will share food with them, asking if they are Anavers. The girl responds positively, surprise. The guy takes the bag and starts shaking the food from the inside. And Celine is wonderful. She takes the food and asks what is that and what happens to the bag. He says it should be enough for them, at least for now. He asks if it's not enough and says he can give more. Aaron says it's great and thanks, calling him again. The protagonist asks me to stop calling him that. The girl behind him means something, but she doesn't dare. He is interested because he feels that something is wrong. The elf says that he gave her the herb, and asks if she has much more of it. Tadashi responds positively, and says that there are even more on the field. He asks her to get more weed, because he's still harvesting. She looks at the plants in her hands and asks about the field. He is surprised, saying that he cultivates himself. And Solini says she'll never believe it, because it is very rare and difficult to grow. The protagonist asks the surprise, what is the problem of cultivating it? The girl with elf ears asks him to calm down and remembers that Tadashi is the king of agriculture and has the blessing of the 7 stars, so it is easy for him to cultivate. The girl says that Aaron is right because she had even forgotten about it. She also says that she has a lot of injuries on the island and is surprised that he has agreed to give her herbs almost for free. The protagonist tells him to say how many more they need and he will give. She sincerely thanks and apologizes for not saying before, to have the 3-star blessing of the healing goddess. She can make an elixir with Alice's weed, and this will be much better than just the weed. The guy says this is awesome. He offers to show what he can do in time. Take Alice's herb and start kneading, boil the water, and finally, she pours everything into a glass. She gets up and a light appears. She invokes Alice, the goddess of healing, asking that of healing power. The protagonist is surprised. It turns out to be an elixir. She says it's a small price, but he considers it as payment for her help. Stop if you agree, and pick up the glass. He says he has never seen such a beautiful glass. Oh, Celine, from a distance. Ask if that's all. Why did you think I would evaluate his skills? Tadashi apologizes and says that his skills are great. Why don't you know how to make such a beautiful glass? In response, he says that the glass is made of ordinary sand, so that he can make it too. She calls another girl, the Asia, who is coming, and Iseline tells her to listen. The girl looks at her with shining eyes. The protagonist perceives glass and understands that lenses can be made in this world. The elf says that glass, like bottles, is made by Axe, who has the blessing of a star from the god of blacksmiths. He also says that elves are naturally good at making glass. But he also has secret knowledge in this branch. As a payment, they are willing to share this with him. The protagonist says that he will be very happy with this. He asks them to teach, because he wants to make the video the same. The girl, confused, agrees and says she will show him everything. However, she says that even with so much glass under her feet, she has no oven and no tools. Tadashi says everything will work out. He has a lot of materials with him now. He takes off the bag and starts shaking everything. Asks to say what they need. And now he will create it. She's happy because Kronos gave her a bag. The 2 elves were super surprised. Asia begins to explain everything to him, and they start working. Iseline realizes that she can create bricks, and asks the second girl how she does it. She thinks that he also has the blessing of the god of Ferraria, and that, because of his main blessing, this process was accelerated. The girl is surprised that he was blessed by more than one god. He thinks Asia sends more than she does, so he's probably right. The protagonist finally finishes the oven, but he still needs to think about portable options for the future. Asia takes a lot of sand in her hand, and says that it all depends on the quality of the sand itself, which has a lot of hull in the sea sand, and, because of this, they will need algae. Iseline suggests that you get the seaweed on your boat. The protagonist thanks and decides to take advantage of the offer. Already on the boat, the protagonist perceives something. He looks at the place with a lot of surprise and asks the girls, one is Harry. And he wonders if he knows this algae. The protagonist answers yes and says that he also had an ocean in his world. He also says he doesn't know how much glass is needed here, but he will leave some for the soup. The girl asks if she has algae. She says that people who always came to throw them, and they looked crooked. He asks why he should not eat, saying that they are very tasty. He also says that not everyone likes seaweed because it has a specific taste. Iseline keeps wondering if this is true, and says she would look good with the seafarers. The girl turns a little red and smiles. The hero thinks to himself that, according to the sign, there should be algae here. All the Japanese could have been fine. The protagonist perceives the seeds of marine cotton and marine rubber, applies the evaluation skills, wondering how it differs from regular cotton. The girl says that sea cotton and rubber are used to create her clothes. She shows this about her. The boy turns red with the girl's attitude, and says that he understands that he will need to cultivate them. Then he asks her if she can show how to do it right. The girl says that she will love to show, but warns that cultivation may take a year or more. The guy finds her interesting, and invites her to see what she can do. They get down on their knees in the water. Tadashi throws a seed into the water. And Isolina keeps thinking what will happen, since he just plants. Suddenly, a small tree grows. The girl is surprised and exclaims, asking what happened. The protagonist next to his reminds that it is possible to use this as a fertilizer. She says that he is smart, and that one of the uses of this is precisely to fertilize the soil, offers to try to play fertilizer on it. The girl says she can't believe her own eyes, marveling at how much the tree has grown. The protagonist thinks with which such large trees grow right in the middle of the beach, now he will definitely have enough material to make glass. He turns to Isoline and she replies. He remembers that she had said that she would do anything to pay for the help and food. The girl is a little scared, but she says that if it's something she can do, she's ready for anything. This world doesn't need healer or warriors in bold, but of people willing to feed the population. If this is the case, then Tadashi is willing to do this, and therefore, you will have to sacrifice your own goals. He says he is an ordinary farmer who knows nothing about this world, so he wants to make a deal. She asks again, a little surprised, and he says yes. He also says that, as a farmer, you will need different plants, seeds and knowledge. In return, he will offer food and cripple weed for the amount they need. He wants to make this island and its people happier and better. The girl says she understood. He smiles and turns a little red. And Sella says that they will return to their island tomorrow morning, but she will fulfill her request. The protagonist asks again about tomorrow morning. Suddenly, he realizes that it is already night. The girl asks what's wrong, surprised, looking at him doubtfully. He says he was so exhausted today that he completely forgot that he needed to build a place to sleep. The guy is very upset, and also says that he has spent all the material on the oven and tools. The girl tells him not to despair, that everything is calm. Isolina encourages him and says it's okay. He opens the tents, and when the tent is already assembled, the protagonist asks how they had tents all the time. Thank the girls, they are smiling. The protagonist sees Kururu running towards him. He says that the animal also did a good job. He notices that Kururu is dirty with sand and tells him to follow him. They're heading for the water. And the happy Kururu roars. Now Kuru is cute and beautiful. The protagonist looks at the girls taking a shower. He is confused and does not know how to take a shower. Tadashi turns red and says that in the future he will need to make a wardrobe. Isolation approaches him smiling and tells him to sleep in his tent. He turns red and says that this is a bad idea, trying to refuse the girl's offer. He says he prefers to stay there and watch the fire. The girl asks what he doesn't like and has dinner, and Oya drag him to the store and say they can't let him sleep. Eren greets them inside the tent and asks if the Lord is with them. The protagonist, confused, says it's still a bad idea, looks around. Thinking with that inside the store is much more spacious, he agrees, saying that he was convinced. The girl with the ears is happy, and says that Mr. Tadashi will settle in with them. Tadashi turns red and indignant, and says that now he definitely refuses, and goes to sleep near the fire. Eren smiles. Suddenly Kururu appears. The protagonist says that the animal convinced him, so they will sleep there. Everyone sleeps in silence. The next morning, the protagonists leave the store and are greeted by a happy one. Asking if he's awake yet, he replies that yes. He says he sees that she also got up early. She asks him if he is going to work. Because I thought I was going to enjoy the opportunity. The protagonist asks what opportunity this is. She pulls back the tent curtain, sarcastically. Ask how it is. Come to the sleeping Isolina. Eren asks him to look at Isoline, and also remember that she would do anything for him. Tadashi asks what she has with her and who she agrees with. The girl laughs and concludes that Isoline is not her type. The guy replies that she is his type, but that he will not use it. Change the theme and ask how the tent fabric can be contained. The girl says it's a silly question and answers that it's with glue. But how else? The protagonist thinks to himself that they seem to use animal bones to make glue, just like their world. Asa wishes everyone a good morning, and asks Tadashi if you want to know how the shops do it. She says that the elastic properties of the tent are due to marine rubber, and they use different types of wood for the guides. The protagonist says that he understood, and thinks that elves are very intelligent. Eren asks if he really likes that kind of thing. He replies that he does, say that he dreamed about it all his life. He also asks what she likes. She asks again. At first, she doesn't know what to answer. Then she says that, as a warrior, she thinks she likes fighting, and is proud to tell her that she has even killed the sharks. The protagonist looks at her in disbelief, and an elf appears behind him. Tadashi wishes Iseline good morning, and gives her water, telling her to drink. The girl says that she is very embarrassed because she is showing drowsy in front of some people. The guy thinks about the one he had imagined before. She was more attracted to ordinary people, but apparently she was wrong. And she is really a princess. Iseline tells Tadashi that they will return to their island. She also says that to the wind, they will be there tomorrow. He asks her to try it as soon as possible, and bring food to his companions. The elf thanks again. The protagonist says that it is an agreement, so she does not have to thank. He concludes by saying that he cannot ignore the attitudes of people here with others. The girl looks at him excitedly, turning a little red. She thanks again. Now I understood what the chronim was talking about there. The gods give power for a reason. It should be justified by helping others. And Selena says that while they are away, she leaves him with Asia and 2 other girls, and asks him to take care of them. The hero agrees and thank you. The girl gets on the boat and they leave. The protagonist greets them and wants a safe trip. He says that now girls can introduce themselves and tell a little about themselves. He wants to give them jobs they know how to do. The girls agree. One introduces himself as Lola and says that he is good at many things. The second one says it's called Belry, that worked in the fields. The protagonist says that he understood and has both, in addition to Asia. He also asks them to change, because although women in bikinis are great, it's too much for him. Ask if they have other clothes and wonder why all the elves in Maruzen bikini. Lola replies that bikini is the best work clothes on the beach. Tadashi says that now they will have other jobs on Earth. So he will give different clothes. It will be dangerous if your skin is exposed. The girls agree. Asia asks where to start, and still says they can make glass. The protagonist keeps thinking, and says that they will plant a forest first. The girls are surprised and ask again, finding the scenery of the sea very beautiful. Deli is surprised that the trees grow even because they were watered. The protagonist says that he was not joking, and thinks to himself that he will clear the land, and that Belle will water the planting and irrigation. He concludes that, even though they can do everything as he said, it means that anyone can plant anything as quickly. In the soil that has fallen. The protagonist thinks to himself that the preparations for the forest are ready. The girls saw him and asked what happened. He stops and says he wants to dig a well there. Delry tells her to leave this with her. Why was she the one who dug a well on the island? The protagonist denies and says that he will manage himself. He thinks he has what he is looking for. The girl is confused. Bang the instrument on the floor. The girl exclaims surprise, and the protagonist says that it looks like she did well and asks her to leave. Suddenly, a strong stream of water comes from the place where it hit. Delris shouted loudly, surprise. Tadashi said he smelled fresh water under the earth. That's why he hit there. He says he's glad it worked out so fast, and he didn't have to dig a hole. The girl agrees, but says she didn't understand what he said. She asks to leave the construction of the well with her, because her job is to help him. The guy agrees, and says that if he wants, he can work. She has already prepared the materials, and they are there, where he says that although it is early, he will take care of lunch. Asia tells Lola to help him with the meal preparation. The girl happily agrees, and they will fish. He is very satisfied with himself, because he got a lot. Ta-so praises him, and says he brought a lot. He licks his finger with salt, and thinks that the salt he made is perfect. Lola asks what she should do. The protagonist asks for time to think, and then tells her to bring the seaweed that Celine left him. He will make the broth while she soaks the seaweed in a big pan. Lola smiles and says that she understood. It's coming out fast. Tad, thus smiling, thinks that, since there is still time until lunch, he can go calmly. Lola speaks loudly to the hero and says that the broth is almost ready. The girl looks at him happily. She smiles and notices Tadashi's bench leaning towards him. What is moving something, and wondering if it is making bread. Tadashi replies that she is surprised that he knows this. She heard that whole fruits could be used to make bread and cookies, so she decided to give it a try. The girl smiles and says that she has already made bread, so that I can leave her. The protagonist smiles and agrees, but says that he also wants to learn how to make bread, so it's better that they do it together. Lola happily agrees, starts working and hitting the dough. She puts a piece on the table and says that fruits are good for cooking, but it is better to mix with flour. The protagonist listens with interest and says that it will be necessary to ask more for Selena. The girl tells him not to worry, that she will do everything. She says that having salt is very good, because the pasta becomes heavier because of it. The guy agrees and says that what he knows how to do very well is go out together. They put the dough in the oven, saying that what is missing now is baking the future bread. When the bread is ready, take it out of the oven. The boy thinks that bread does not look like his land. He breaks a piece and thinks this is how it should be. Now it's the seafood soup twist. It takes its seaweed and needs to be removed before it boils. He looks at the plate and says that, adding what Kururu has found, there will be something very good. When dinner is ready, the three girls are impressed. One of them tries the dish and says that it is delicious. Asia says she didn't know how about if she could cook seaweed, and she was going to eat with it too. They must think that he is also from the sea of the sea elves. He says, smiling, that he doesn't consider him a stranger either. The protagonist says that he is happy to hear this. The guy asks Kururu if he likes bread. Why is it very tasty? Because of the whole fruits. Kururu grunts happily while eating. The protagonist turns to the three girls and thanks for their hard work. He says he made coffee with local fruits and asks them to try it. Asia says she has never had this type of drink and wants to know what coffee is. One of the girls screams and says it's bitter. Lola says that although she struggled to do so, they prefer to drink water. She apologizes. The protagonist is confused and says he better apologize. He thinks to himself that he tastes like his coffee in his world and does not understand where he made a mistake. Asia, smiling, says that the coffee is delicious and that she liked it. The guy says he was happy to hear this and lets out a sigh. The girl asks him not to do that. The protagonist laughs and says that today he will also teach them how to make a better glass. She says that she is embarrassed, because that's all she knows how to do to help. So Itazi is working in the workshop. Finally, they can make a glass bottle. The protagonist says that the work is ready and he has the result in hand. The girl says that she is beautiful or that she is the best. She also says that he even did a glass slam. The protagonist laughs and says that he only had one good teacher. He remembers the gods and hopes that Vulcan and others will be fine. He thinks that one day he will have to invite them to a seafood banquet. She says that wood burns very well, and with her technology, she will be able to make a high-quality glass. Asia says that if you have more glass, they will be able to create more jelly bottles. Tadashi replies that the girl understood him well and asks her to make as many bottles as possible. He also asks her to make glass utensils, saying that it is more beautiful and resistant than ceramics. The girl agrees. The protagonist thinks to himself that they will need a lot of elixirs, which means that it's time to expand the herbals fields. In addition, they will also need food vegetables, so they will need to plant a field with it. Tadashi turns to Belle for help. He needs to do something before the sun comes up. The girl agrees to help without problems. The protagonist thinks that, despite so much work, he likes to live like this, making tools and utensils with what he takes himself. He thinks that this is exactly how he wanted to live. Suddenly, Deli asks her if she needs to put cotton wool and rubber today. She says she's going after that. Lola tells the hero that if he wants to make cables and fabrics, he will need a tear and a knitting machine. But it is not easy to make them. So the girl says that she and Asa can fight and make these stops. For if she agrees and says she will take the sewing needles. The hero will use cotton to create the cables and fabrics, because the quality of these things is much higher. Tadashi says he usually doesn't think much about these things. But he wants to sew some cool things for the girls, because they can save on bathing costumes. Suddenly, Bellry realizes something and turns around. She calls Tadashi. The heroes see a ship heading towards them. Tadashi says it's Iceland and the others are fine. He is happy to see that they are doing well. Suddenly, other boats begin to appear behind the first one. Tadashi is surprised by the number of boats. They touch the beach, and the elves begin to get off them, unloading their things. A girl named and runs to Tadashi screaming, "Master! The hero shouts that he has asked her several times not to call him that way. The girl shows her tongue and says she doesn't know anything. Aisley tells me that Tadashi returned and also says that they brought a harvest with them and ask the hero to take a look. Tadashi is very surprised by this. The hero thought that Celine and the others would bring only seeds, but he soon realizes that the final product is even better. He looks at the food baskets and says that barley and hops will be useful in brewing beer. It uses sugar cane and walnut in the manufacture of sugar and butter. The hero also discovers wheat and soybeans in the branch harvest, thanks to the line of the food they brought. The girl says that they tried to plant these things on the island, but they could not grow at all. She apologizes for the fact that her island is not very good for some cultures. But the hero interrupts her by saying that what the elves brought is great. He praises them, saying that if he had more cultures, he wouldn't even know what to do. And Celine says that almost everyone was sent here to help the hero in the fields. In total, 150 people arrived. The girl also says that, in addition, they brought some tools that will help